Fans of the franchise are waiting in anticipation for the release of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, releasing on September 2, 2022, on Amazon Prime Video. The hype behind the show is familiar for readers of fantasy books, as adaptations this big always carry with them similarly massive followings. From juggernauts like Harry Potter to Game of Thrones, there are plenty of fantasy books that have become mainstream popular, and it's interesting to check out how much the franchises have sold over the years in terms of book copies. This metric reconfirms the interest in fantasy novels and why there will continue to be audiences for this form of media. The Shadowhunter Chronicles, greater than 36 million copies. TV and film audiences know this series better for the Mortal Instruments film and the characters seen in the Shadowhunter show. Written by Cassandra Clare, The Shadowhunter Chronicles is an overarching story with various timelines separating arcs from one another for a premise that spans centuries. The series has sold more than 36 million copies since the release of City of Bones in 2007, via the New York Times, proving to be popular with young adult audiences. The Shadowhunter Chronicles story about humans with angel blood protecting the world from demons and monsters has been expanded into other media, although its main success has remained in the books. The Vampire Chronicles, greater than 80 million copies. The Vampire Chronicles follows French nobleman Lestat de Lioncourt, who functions as a vampire in the 18th century. Film audiences will be familiar with author Anne Rice's series through the film Interview with the Vampire, which was a big hit at the time of release. The Vampire Chronicles sold more than 80 million copies since the first book in 1976, via The Telegraph, concluding in 2018 with Blood Communion, a tale of Prince Lestat prior to the author's passing. The franchise's popularity comes from the increasing mythology crafted with each book's release, with the fanbase increasing over the decades. Discworld, greater than 80 million copies. Terry Pratchett's Discworld features various different stories set on the titular flat planet that is balanced on 4 elephants that stand on a massive turtle moving through space. The novels contain beings like witches, wizards, and other mythological beings with a humorous twist. Discworld has sold more than 80 million copies since the first book's release in 1983, via Independent. Stories like Going Postal, The Color of Magic, and more, have been adapted into games, films and TV shows. Discworld came to an end with Pratchett's passing in 2015, but the author left 41 novels as part of the franchise's legacy. The Wheel of Time, greater than 90 million copies. Written by Robert Jordan, with Brandon Sanderson completing the work after the former's passing, the Wheel of Time series is an epic set in a world where time is fluid. The story simultaneously takes place in the past and future, depicting the progression of the human race. The Wheel of Time has sold more than 90 million copies since its first release in 1990, via Time, with the Amazon Prime TV series furthering its popularity in recent times. There are quite a few interesting Wheel of Time characters to follow, with fans taking to the medieval-style presentation of the series. A Song of Ice and Fire, greater than 90 million copies. Fans of George R.R. Martin's work know everything from the Targaryens in Game of Thrones to the dynastic war in Westeros. This popularity has magnified to incredible lengths thanks to the Game of Thrones TV series, which is adapted from A Song of Ice and Fire novels. The series has sold more than 90 million copies since the first book's release in 1996 via Independent, with the story still technically active since 2 more novels are planned. A Song of Ice and Fire is certain to keep selling with more TV series to follow and when Martin finally completes the story. The Chronicles of Narnia, greater than 100 million copies. Written by C.S. Lewis, The Chronicles of Narnia tells the story of the titular fantasy land where a young protagonist from Earth engages in the unfolding history of the magical realm. Although consisting of 7 novels, the series has been adapted into a film trilogy, among other media works. The Chronicles of Narnia has sold more than 100 million copies since the first book was released in 1950, via the official Narnia website, continuing to be popular as a children's fantasy series. Its status as a classic makes Narnia one of the most recognizable pieces of literature. Percy Jackson the Olympians, greater than 180 million copies. Author Rick Riordan wrote one of the biggest children's fantasy series in Percy Jackson the Olympians, which follows the titular protagonist across Greek realms in the present day. The franchise has been a massive success, spawning games, films, and TV shows. Percy Jackson the Olympians has sold more than 180 million copies worldwide, via Disney, which is remarkable considering the main series only lasted from 2005 to 2009. With a Disney Plus series to follow, the franchise's staying power is set to become stronger, and more book sales are expected. Twilight, greater than 250 million copies. Written by Stephenie Meyer, Twilight was a phenomenon during the time the story was in progress, with the film series also seeing huge success. The series follows human Bella Swan who falls in love with the vampire Edward Cullen and becomes embroiled in a world of monsters fated for an epic clash. Twilight has sold more than 250 million copies since its first release in 2005 via biography, with a lot of the goodwill coming from how popular the film franchise became. Stephenie Meyer has restarted the story from Edward's point of view, which should ensure millions more in book sales. Middle-earth Saga, greater than 250 million. The popularity of J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth Saga hasn't waned in the slight in almost a century since it began. Comprising The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, the franchise has been a critical and commercial powerhouse, as the story of characters set in Middle-earth battling over the One Ring has connected with generations of fans. The Middle-earth Saga is estimated to have sold more than 250 million copies, 150 million for The Lord of the Rings via Reuters, and 100 million for The Hobbit via Telegraph. Since the series went into print so long ago, it's suggested that sales might be even higher than the numbers reported. Harry Potter, greater than 500 million copies. No fantasy series has arguably left such a pop culture footprint as the Harry Potter series. The story of the titular protagonist's entry into Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry and battle against Lord Voldemort has exceeded all lofty expectations. The resulting Wizarding World franchise now comprises books, films, video games, and more. J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter has sold more than 500 million copies since its first release in 1997, via Forbes. The juggernaut film franchise has undoubtedly contributed to its success, but the Harry Potter books have still taken the fantasy platform in literature by storm and seem unmatched in popularity.
You did or you